You know those perfect solar installation tutorials? The ones where everything just works? Well, let's get real for a minute. The job site is messy. Today, we are pulling back the curtain and looking at the actual nitty-gritty errors you run into in the field, and, more importantly, how to fix them.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This isn't about theory. This is about what happens when the boots hit the roof. Look, even the pros run into problems. The real skill isn't just following a perfect diagram. It's knowing how to troubleshoot and safely fix the imperfect system that's right there in front of you.
Yeah, the gap between a clean diagram and the real world can be huge. Tutorials show you this pristine, perfect wiring, but reality can hide a nasty reverse polarity issue. They assume a perfect sunny day, but reality hits you with a cold snap that sends your voltage through the roof. It's in that gap between theory and practice where a project really comes together, or falls apart. And that's where safety is truly put to the test.
Okay, so before we dive into the fixes, we gotta lay some groundwork with a few key electrical concepts. You can think of these as the why behind every single solution we're about to talk about.
This right here is fundamental to literally everything. So think of it this way. Wiring your panels in series is like stacking batteries end to end. The voltage just adds up. Wiring in parallel, on the other hand, is like adding more lanes to a highway. The current, or the flow of traffic, adds up. Getting this one concept wrong is the root cause of so many headaches. And believe me, the stakes are incredibly high. We're not talking about little glitches here. Reverse polarity can instantly fry an expensive piece of equipment. Overcurrent can literally start a fire, and overvoltage can completely destroy your charge controller. These are serious, serious risks to your safety and your wallet. All right, with that foundation in place, let's get to the main event. We are going to walk through 5 real-world mistakes we found on an actual site. We'll treat each one like a little case file. What's the problem? What's causing it? And how did we fix it? Okay, first up, picture this. You've just connected a string of panels, you grab your multimeter to check the output, and you get zilch. Nothing. 0 volts. It is an absolutely heart-sinking moment. So what in the world is going on? 9 times out of 10, the culprit is reversed polarity. Somewhere in that string, a positive MC4 connector, you know those standard plugs on the panels, got plugged into a negative one. In a series circuit, that basically acts like a brick wall. It just stops the flow completely. Oh, and another dead giveaway? If you switch your multimeter leads and suddenly see a negative voltage reading, you found your problem.
Now, fixing this is pretty simple, but you have to do it safely. First things first, put on your insulated gloves. De-energize that circuit. Then just use your multimeter to test each connection until you pinpoint the one that's backward. Carefully disconnect it, reconnect it the right way, and then double-check the voltage to make sure you're getting that positive reading you were expecting. And just like that, problem solved.
Okay, on to the next case file. The system is up and running, but every time you put a heavy load on it, say you turn on a microwave or a big power tool, pop, the main battery fuse blows. You replace it, it happens again. This isn't just bad luck, my friends. This is a math problem. The answer lies in this very simple but very important rule. A fuse has to be able to handle the absolute maximum current you expect, plus a little safety margin. The industry standard is to size your fuse for 125%, or 1.25 times, your max current. This does 2 things. It protects your wires from a dangerous overload, but it also gives you enough headroom so the fuse doesn't blow every time you get a normal power surge. So the fix here is methodical. You got to disconnect the battery first. Then, do the math. Figure out your true maximum current draw. Apply that 1.25 rule to get the correct fuse amperage. Then, and this is super important, make sure the new fuse you install is specifically rated for DC circuits. They are not the same as AC fuses.
On to our third mystery. Your panels are soaking up the sun, they're producing great power right at the source, but when you go measure the voltage way down the line at the inverter, the numbers are way lower. So where'd all that energy go? Well, it's literally being lost as heat in the wires.
This is a classic case of what we call voltage drop. The power leaving the panels is just not what's arriving at the inverter. I like to think of your wire as a garden hose, right? If the hose is too long and too skinny, you're going to lose a ton of water pressure by the time it gets to the end. It's exactly the same with electricity. Resistance in a wire that's too small for the job just bleeds off your precious voltage as heat. It's just wasted power. The only real fix here is to upgrade to a thicker wire. After you power everything down, you can hop online and find a voltage drop calculator. You just plug in your voltage, your current, and the length of the wire run, and it'll spit out the correct American wire gauge, or AWG, that you need. It's a simple upgrade, but it can reclaim a ton of that power you were losing.
This next one is a little more subtle. Your system works like a charm all day long. But on really cold mornings, right as the sun comes up, your charge controller just starts screaming with an overvoltage alarm. So why on earth does the temperature matter?
Well, it all comes down to a really cool, simple principle of physics. Solar panels produce higher voltage when they're cold. That open circuit voltage, or VOC, that you see on a panel's spec sheet, that's based on standard, pretty mild test conditions. So if you design your system to be right near the controller's voltage limit on a nice day, a cold snap can easily push that voltage over the edge. And that's what triggers those alarms, or worse, damages your gear.
The fix for this one actually happens back at the drawing board, in the design phase. You have to look up the record low temperature for your specific location and then recalculate the string's maximum possible voltage for that temperature. If that new, higher number is over your controller's limit, the easiest solution is just to remove a panel from that series string. That'll bring the voltage back down into a safe range.
All right, our final case file. Your batteries are topped off at sunset, but when you wake up in the morning, they've lost a good chunk of their charge, even though it seems like nothing was turned on. It feels like you've got a ghost in the machine draining your power. So, where is it all going?
Well, that ghost has a name: phantom loads. See, a lot of our modern electronics are never really off. Your inverter standby mode, that little red light on your TV, your internet modem, they're all just sipping a tiny bit of power 24/7. And over the course of a long night, all those little sips can add up to a really significant drain on your battery bank. So you gotta go phantom hunting. It takes a systematic approach. First, turn off all your main breakers. Then use a DC clamp meter right on your main battery cable to see if there's still a current draw. If there is, you start tracing it back to find the source. The absolute best way to fix this is to install physical disconnect switches on those sneaky devices so you can cut their power completely when you're not using them.
So there you have it. We've walked through 5 really common but really critical field errors. But you know, the real goal here is to stop fixing problems and start preventing them. Let's take everything we just learned and boil it down into a simple checklist to stop these mistakes before they even happen.
This checklist right here, this represents a huge shift from being reactive to being proactive. It's all about building good habits. Always check your polarity before you plug anything in. Always do the math for your fuses. Always calculate for voltage drop and for that coldest possible temperature. And always hunt down those phantom loads before you pack up your tools. This is how you turn painful lessons into a simple blueprint for success.
At the end of the day, every mistake is a chance to learn something. By really understanding what can go wrong out there in the real world, you are so much better equipped to build a system that's safe, efficient, and reliable right from day one. So take another look at this list and ask yourself, which one of these checks are you going to add to your routine to make your next project that much better?